Let's check this out. 25 best FromSoftware bosses.
FromSoftware has become a leading developer of action RPGs,
they have.
crafting a number of unforgettable journeys into grimdark lands filled with horrors and wonder in equal measure.
FromSoftware has not only been at the forefront, they created a genre. They spearheaded a genre that they are still the masters of. Like, we have Lies of P that does the closest to Souls really well. I have yet to play it, but, you know, I'm basing myself. You know, you have like Black Myth Wukong that I still haven't played either. But we are talking about a developer that has dominated this field of their genre. I don't think many other developers or developers out there have had this much of a stronghold, of a stranglehold on the genre as FromSoftware has. Like, when it comes to other genres of games, I don't like, maybe MMOs with World of Warcraft, maybe they still have a stranglehold on it. But you have, you know, Final Fantasy and Guild Wars, and now a lot of the Korean MMOs like Throne and Liberty and what's the other name? I forget the other one from Amazon Games. But it's fairly rare to see a developer have such a decisive stranglehold over the there's New World. There's other one. I played another one. I forgot the name, but you know, there's a bunch of them out there that you could easily say, yes, this has this gives them, yeah, there's a lot of really good competition that is at the level, if not better, than the OGs. Because I'm thinking, right, Genshin Impact was not the first gacha game. They were definitely not. They were not the first Zelda-like game with their combat and everything. They have Souls-like elements. We have this game here that is the Souls experience. Look at Path of Exile. They were not the first ones to do the Diablo formula. And now we saw Path of Exile 2, and people are starting to call games like it more Exile-like instead of Diablo-like. Because Path of Exile just completely took over, and they were not the first. And that is common. Like, who was the first to do FPS? Do they have a stranglehold on FPS games, first-person shooters? No, they do not. FromSoftware is a very, very interesting exception to this rule, because they are the OGs and the best at Souls games. We're 11 seconds in. Let's let this guy speak a little bit more.
But despite its unrivaled approach to level and lore design, FromSoft's lasting legacy will likely always be its bosses. Deeply challenging, typically horrific foes that push your skills to the very limits.
Yes, what the games are based around, yeah.
Lose everything.
With all this in mind, we asked ourselves, what are the best boss fights FromSoftware has made? We assessed not just the challenge of each fight, but every element of the battle, the music, the setting, the mechanical complexity, the lore significance, and many other details. This isn't a list of the most difficult bosses. This is a list of the greatest bosses in FromSoftware history.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at this as a whole. That's a big caveat. Disclaimer from my end, I have not finished Bloodborne, which we are going to eventually, and I haven't finished Elden Ring DLC. I didn't play Dark Souls 2 DLCs either. I highly doubt Dark Souls 2 bosses are going to be here. The title is then probably not the best. I haven't played Demon's Souls either. I haven't finished Demon's Souls. Like, I have it on PS3. But we didn't finish it. We started it on stream, and then my capture card gave in, so I need to get a new one, but that's besides the point here. Alright, let's check this out.
O gathering of champions, the revels begin!
Top 25 FromSoftware Bosses. What say you, IGN? Number 25.
Conceptually, the Old Monk from Demon's Souls is one of the coolest ways FromSoftware has tried to push its vision of PvP multiplayer invasions. Instead of a traditional computer-controlled boss, the Old Monk has a chance of being puppeted by another player. While the level of challenge the Old Monk possesses largely depends on the skill of the summoned player, this unusual event nonetheless does a good job of reminding you that enemy players can appear in your game at any time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is the same concept as Spear of the Church in Dark Souls 3 Ringed City, which I guess in this case it's just the PvP 1v1, which, unless Spear of the Church is in this list too, I'm already kind of like not really like, what kind of team did you put together for this, IGN? What kind of, but it's game journalists, so you know, let's take their word with what is worth, right? So let's continue.
Even during a boss fight. While many of its bosses have been totally eclipsed by more elegantly designed foes in subsequent games, Demon's Souls' puzzle-style showdowns remain fascinating high points in FromSoftware's library. Old Hero is the best example. A tall, glowing, hard-hitting ancient warrior who is completely blind. He flails out in all directions.
Another caveat to take about this one, this is from the remake. They're not taking into account the original. This is the remake. The remake has different music, has different mechanics. Like, mechanically, the engine works a little bit differently than in the original. And the music is different. Graphically, it's also different. So we also have to take it with that grain of sand. We're not talking about the original Demon's Souls. We're talking about the remake over here, which, of course, they didn't bother telling us.
His inability to track you by sight makes avoiding his blade practically trivial. However, while he can't see you, he can hear you. And so the clash against Old Hero becomes a quasi-stealth experience. It's hardly a difficult fight, settling into a pattern of sneaking into position, striking the hero's ankles, and then silently holding back until he resets his patrol.
Okay, so the Resident Evil 4 thing, but you don't have a gun. Interesting that FromSoftware would do this with a boss fight stealth in this. Interesting. It's an interesting concept. Let's see what the rest of the list has to say.
Despite this, Old Hero stands as a unique event in FromSoft history and laid the groundwork for esoteric bosses like Elden Ring's Renala and Sekiro's folding screen monkeys.
Number 23.
Dragons are typically some of the toughest bosses in FromSoftware's games, but early dragon fights in games like Dark Souls and Demon's Souls felt more like prototypes compared to some of the epic dragon fights that appear in newer games. A turning point for fantasy's iconic winged beasts, when dragon fights truly began to feel like epic clashes, came.
This was what's so annoying. I never played this one, and I never bothered with this one because Dark Souls 2 is such a poorly crafted game that I didn't bother. I think I made it to the temple where you're supposed to get this boss fight, and I just never did. Second DLC, yeah, I think I went into there, but I just never bothered. I just never bothered. It's such a badly crafted game that I just couldn't pull myself through to it. So
came in Dark Souls 2's Sunken Crown trilogy with the battle against Sin, the slumbering dragon.
And there are so many bosses that I can think that we could think of. Like now I'm gonna need to like figure out what boss fights. But if you're talking about the entirety, there should not be a single Dark Souls 2 boss because the whole game is so badly crafted. And you said in its entirety, and by default, Dark Souls 2 is the one with the worst crafting. Like, you can enjoy the game. You can absolutely enjoy Dark Souls 2. But objectively speaking, the game is incredibly poorly crafted. The music is good. But the mechanics of it is just not good. It's not good. So, yeah, I disagree with... On principle, I disagree with any of the boss fights in Dark Souls 2 being in this list. Because Dark Souls 2 is a badly crafted game. Dark Souls 2, there's 2 DLC bosses that are good that I remember. I didn't bother with the DLCs because the game, I sludged through the main game, and that was it. It's just not a well-crafted game.
With swelling music
Doesn't
accompanying
meet
this
the
monstrously difficult fight in the depths of a poisonous cavern, Sin is the template for how cool and terrifying all later dragon fights feel in FromSoftware games.
Okay, so is this a list about the most influential boss fights, or is this a list about the best boss fights? Because right now you are justifying this boss fight being number 23 in the list because it influences other fights later down the line. What's your standard here? What are we talking about? You had a team of people come up with this, and you cannot give me a consistent standard. Is it the best FromSoftware boss fights? Is it the best crafted boss fights? Is it the best overall, or are we talking influential? Because so far, you've given me 3 boss fights that are influential to the series, which, fair enough. Those are influential, those are important, but that doesn't make them the best. That does not make them the best. It might make them the first, but that is very, very different.
While you must put down a number of eldritch creatures during your journey through Yharnam, none reflects Bloodborne's relationship with the works of Lovecraft quite like Ebritis, daughter of the cosmos. A mass of tentacles, growths, and wings. She's the creature worshipped by the healing church and the origin point of blood administration.
Wait, welcome today, man. How you doing?
Of the blood, made men by the blood,
It is the best Pokemon.
undone by the blood.
In short, she's a key reason for why the events of Bloodborne take place. While she doesn't quite prove as fearsome as her backstory may suggest, she nonetheless provokes a thematically rich showdown. Her most devastating attack sees her rip open the cosmos to fire valleys of arcane energy, while her regurgitated blood inflicts frenzy, a status effect that slowly drives you insane by inflicting the eldritch truth upon your mind. As we said, it's Lovecraft as hell.
Yeah, that's really cool. Number 21.
Arguably the most difficult fight in Dark Souls 2, Fume Knight combines speed and brawn. He dual wields 2 weapons, a longsword for speedy attacks, and a hulking Buster Sword style blade for heavy damage. He'll later combine the 2 into one giant flame sword that you do not want to get on the wrong end of.
Are we talking about, as one of the 2 said earlier? There you go. Yeah, I know about the Fume Knight. Again, IGN, are we talking about the best, or are we talking about the most influential? Because the big sword, small sword, we have Pontiff Sullivan, who did it considerably better. Merges into one big flaming sword. We have Gwyn. We have the Soul of Cinder, who did it better. By default, on principle, if we're talking about the best, quality-wise, Dark Souls 2 does not meet the standard for this list. So, what are you doing? Fume Knight made me say how single-handedly wielding a broadsword, brother. There you go, yeah.
While the Fume Knight's difficulty makes him stand out, he's also very fun to fight. FromSoft's dual-style fights typically pit you against either a speedy knight or a heavy, but Fume Knight combines both in one flame-wielding package.
So in the context of Dark Souls 2, this gives you the variety that it... Yeah, no, this is nonsense. Number 20.
The fight against Bale the Dread is memorable enough on its own, what with being one of the hardest bosses in a DLC featuring some of the toughest
and you're putting
bosses
these side by side. What the fuck?
But what really elevates it and sends it over the edge, making it one of the best fights throughout the series, is your NPC ally, Egon.
Bale! Vile Bale!
His guttural cries of sheer hatred for Bale, both in the lead up to the fight and the fight itself, are just unforgettable, and add another layer of excitement in an already incredibly exciting face-off against a hideous dragon.
I will soon feast upon your heart!
Yep. Number 19.
Every FromSoft game has a proving ground moment relatively early on. These boss fights challenge your grasp of the game's mechanics, and if you can't overcome them, then that's likely where your playthrough ends. Bloodborne features perhaps the best of this particular style of boss with Father Gascoigne. If you just mindlessly strike at him, he will counter you with a gunshot and use of a visceral attack for huge damage. And if you
Okay, immersion is important to the fight more so than the fight IMO. Yes, and by definition, because of that, because Dark Souls 2 is so poorly crafted, it should not be on this list, any of them. Because the mechanics of the game are so poorly made that it just draws you out of it. It completely throws you out of it. So none of those should be here, in general. Yes, I am biased. I despise Dark Souls 2. It should not have been made. Not in the engine that it was. If you put it, if you were to remake it on the Dark Souls 3 or the Elden Ring engine, it would become a tolerable game with bad level design. And bad enemy placement. With a couple of okay boss fights. But Dark Souls 2, by any definition and standard of this list, should not be on this list. Because it looked challenging, because it was the culmination of player making it. Yeah, like Dark Souls 2, I still think there should be Dark Souls 2 bosses in 25. There shouldn't be 25. Yeah, there you go. There shouldn't be. There you go. Yeah.
If you just try to rely on your reflexes and dodge his attacks, he will likely outlast you thanks to how little damage you do and how few healing blood vials you likely have. To take on Gascoigne, you need to learn how to use the environment to your advantage, to not get greedy with your offense, and ideally, how to use your own gun to parry his slower attacks, all of which are crucial skills that you'll need to know for future, harder fights in Bloodborne.
Yep. Number 18.
Elden Ring is burst into the seams with sweeping spectacle, but not many of its encounters come close to facing off against the scale of Starscourge Radahn
This is number 18,
and his vast festival battlefield. The oversized, maniacal experimenter of gravity magic may cut a slightly comical figure atop his tiny, by comparison, steed, but the last thing you'll be doing is laughing when he's plunging down to Earth like a meteor hell-bent on your destruction. While the patch dropped in Elden Ring's earliest days means he'll no longer offer the same level of ludicrous challenge he once did. The battle against Radahn is still...
We already saw that their standard is incredibly inconsistent, so let's just see what they have to say. Melina was the goal for making watch plans. There you go.
A fight that stands as one of Miyazaki's most inventive. The ability to summon in numerous NPC companions you've met along your journey adds a real sense of epicness to the battle as well. As the likes of Blythe, Lionel the Lionhearted, and everyone's favourite big pot lad, Iron Fist Alexander, join the fray.
Ah, hello there.
It's an encounter worthy of the Festival of Combat's name, and one that ends in one of the most, literally, earth-shattering moments of Elden Ring, revealing a whole new layer to FromSoft's masterpiece.
He was a living legend if ever I saw one.
Number 17.
FromSoft's games are laden with melancholy, but few moments reach the heart-tugging heights, depths of being asked to strike down Great Grey Wolf Sif. Artorias' loyal, oversized canine companion, Sif can be found guarding the grave of its fallen master, wielding his large greatsword between his jaws. This may not be Dark Souls' most challenging encounter, but it is one heavy with atmosphere and story implications. All this can't help but leave an emotional imprint on those who take part in it. As such, it remains one of the series' most enduring moments, and a reminder.
Yes. The analysis is accurate. At least they can make observations. I5 hit boss fight first playthrough with max weapon. Like Sif is the boss fight that teaches you that not every boss is a wild enemy that is full of malice that is trying to kill you. Sif teaches you that there might just be something else. And it's done so well. After you complete the Abyss quest, is got it. Oh yeah, it really
reminder that FromSoft's worlds and characters are rarely presented as morally black and white. Instead, they're forever grey.
Not all of them, but yeah. Number 16.
If you want an example of one if not the most purely aggressive bosses in Souls-like history, look no further than Malekith. Even in his bestial first phase, he rushes towards you, darting in and out of the fight, tossing rocks at you even as he dodges away. But the real terror begins when he throws away his robe and reveals his true form. Malekith, the Black Blade.
that's
He
really
doesn't
cool
even
fight,
restore his health, but it never feels like he's coming into the battle at anything less than 100%, because it's so hard to
Full
actually
power.
find opportunities to hit him. His combos are long and have multiple follow-ups that are easy to catch you by surprise if you've not committed every precise pattern to memory. Despite this difficulty though, Malekith remains one of the most memorable boss fights throughout all of Elden Ring,
Really is,
for how
especially once you get his dagger.
high intensity the whole fight is, right from the get-go.
Yeah, it just completely fills you with adrenaline, and I'm pretty sure they bitched about this boss fight, but yeah. Straight up start throwing... Oh yeah, this guy is anger personified. It was such a cool fight. But yeah. Number 15.
Dancer of the Boreal Valley is a visually stunning, technically unique boss fight. Wielding a pair of curved blades, this giant armored boss utilizes her long limbs and erratic fighting style to keep players on their toes.
About the music.
Unusually timed animations mean you never know when she's gonna strike, nor
No. The animations are not unusual. They are not unusual. They're not unusually timed. The music is made to throw you off, because most boss fights in Souls games will have some sort of rhythm to them, to the music that is playing in the background. Dancer of the Boreal Valley the music is made to throw you off. It has the drum beat, because most fights will have a drum beat that gives you the tempo. But in the Dancer of the Boreal Valley, the drum beat is there to throw you off. The piece is in 3/4, is in 3/4, but the drum beat is not. And the drum beat makes you try to think that you're still in 4. So everything feels out of place, and it gives her this sense of a more ethereal, more mystic form, the dancer. But yeah, the music in Dancer of the Boreal Valley is made to throw you off. That's why most players who aren't music savvy, who don't know this kind of stuff, will think that her patterns are off. They're not off. The music is made to throw you off. And I'm pretty sure Miyazaki asked for it. There's no way this is just something that the composer would have thought from himself. So... And yeah, then there's that.
From what distance, making it hard to predict her moves. But Dark Souls 3's animation team deserves extra credit for creating such an eerie figure whose dance-like movements certainly live up to her name.
Yep. Number 14.
The first time players face off against Sekiro's Genichiro Ashina, the battle takes place in a field of reeds on a moonlit night. While the boss fight will likely last only a few short minutes, it is one of the most memorable fights in the entire game. That's until...
What is Sekiro? Are you being ironic right now, or should I give you the explanation?
You face him again atop Ashina Castle, where you'll face one of the most epic duels in FromSoftware's history. Crossing swords with Genichiro Ashina will require all of your strength and guile, and learning to deflect literal lightning back at your foe is perhaps Sekiro's mythical swordsman fantasy at its most potent. Ultimately though, this fight is a test to see whether you grasp Sekiro's key concepts of parrying and deflecting, because if you're not prepared for Genichiro, you're not prepared for Sekiro.
Sekiro it's the most difficult Souls game made so far, because there's one class. There's the Ronin that you play as, and you can parry, and you have your katana, you have the left hand, the other hand attachments that you can kind of make some variation, but it's not like Dark Souls. It is so good. It's so insanely good. The story is insane. So... Reconator, nice. It's okay. No worries, man, no worries.
As Sekiro's storyline begins to branch into its final act, progressing towards the purification ending involves killing Wolf's imposing and traitorous father, Owl.
What's the matter, Stray?
Man, the story with Owl.
To lose.
The fight's emotional blows are second only to its physical ones, as Owl is one of the most aggressive and hard-hitting bosses in the entire game. He has an arsenal of lethal gadgets up his sleeve, hurling handfuls of shuriken as he leaps through the air and casting trails of thick smoke and sparks that conceal his long-reaching sword strikes. Despite his heavy, muscular physique, he's surprisingly quick, especially during the fight's second phase, when he's able to make use of a spectral owl to teleport across the arena. Now, murdering your father is a difficult thing to do, but when the fight's as thrilling as this one, the feeling is
not entirely unpleasant.
Sekiro has some of the best visuals in all From Software games. It has some of the wildest visuals as well, because you are going through Japanese mythology and you are encountering so many incredible things that it's insanely good. Big fan of Japanese. Oh yeah, you're gonna like Sekiro is very difficult because you need to learn to time the attacks properly. You need to learn the very somewhat narrowed down gameplay loop that they will have. But it is one of the better ones. I would say for me it competes in quality with Dark Souls 3, and Dark Souls 3 is my favorite. Elden Ring, of course, being the GOAT. Unquestionably, but for me my favorite is Dark Souls 3, and Sekiro quality wise is pretty much just as good. It is entirely different from other Souls games, and it's so unique and it's so good. It's so good because so is Armored Core. I still haven't finished that one either, but you know, in a different sense. But yeah, no, it's also beautiful in its own way. So it looks like Ghost of Tsushima made by FromSoft. The story is very different, but yeah, and Sekiro came out what, 2019? I think it was something like that. No, way before. No. I'm thinking it's 2017. I think. Number 12.
If there's a boss who can represent the
I'm offended. 2019? I was right. Oh shit, I was already in Hungary? I thought I was in Boston when it came out. Okay. I'm offended. Fuck you, IGN. No. I refuse. Number 12, The Soul of Cinder? No. Unacceptable.
very essence of Dark Souls through aesthetics alone. It's the soul of Cinder.
Okay, no. I can justify this for one reason. The turning ratio of the fucking lance. The turning ratio of the lance breaks this fight for me. I love this fight so much as long as I don't get the lance. The turning ratio of the lance ruins this fight for me. Whenever he goes for the lance, I just start rolling away to the other side of the map. The moves for the lance are just broken in the worst possible way. I hate it. The Plain Blown. Oh yeah, no, that's no.
The final boss of Dark Souls 3, this manifestation of every lord linked to the flame, takes the form of a grimdark knight shrouded in fire. Its amalgamation nature means it fights with an unpredictable array of styles. One moment it can perform a deadly pirouette with an elegant curved sword, and the next close the distance between you with a piercing spear lunge. It's the fight's second phase though that really locks Soul of Cinder into the history books, unleashing heavy, multi-strike combos with a flaming blade. His attack patterns recreate those of Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, and final boss of the original Dark Souls. And so the trilogy ends in a beautiful, haunting reflection of its seminal first outing.
This is how many are we? What how many what? Soul of Cinder is how you do nostalgia. You do something new and then you do something to call back the old. I think Soul of Cinder is a masterclass in nostalgia bait. Because it is. And it's so good. Number 11. Yes.
Frida to me,
yes,
please.
Sister Frieda. I'm
a
still
brutal endurance
not
test
happy that it's
across
not top 10,
three
but
distinct phases. Sister Fried is arguably the most punishing boss fight in the entire Dark Souls series. Hidden away in the Ashes of Ariandel DLC, Fried is a scythe-wielding nun that fights with such relentless aggression that the most difficult thing is not so much staying alive, but finding the opportunity to deal even a single point of damage. She fights alone in the fierce first and third phases, but
she was the first, I think she was the first boss in the Soul series that had 3 phases. Yeah, I think she was the first one that had 3 phases, and it just took everyone by surprise. It was just, dude, what? I think this was the first one that had 3 phases.
But it's the middle phase where things really get going. Freed awakens the ginormous Father Ariandel, who drags himself around the arena while spilling great tides of searing flame from his massive bowl. Overcoming both Ariandel and the frost casting Freed simultaneously is a song of ice and fire for the ages.
Such a good fight. Number 10.
Bloodborne's most infamous foe, Orphan of Kos, plagues the nightmares of all who have faced it. The grotesque, shrieking offspring of a dying Great One, the Orphan is a terrifyingly fast boss. After closing the distance with a spry leap, it attacks tirelessly with lengthy, unpredictable combos that are difficult to parry and leave practically zero room for error.
The Orphan of Kos is one of my favorite insults. Well, he's not entirely, but he's one of my favorite insults, which is a half-animated abortion. He's fully animated though, so there you go.
Oh, and if its corpse-like form wasn't gross enough, it wields its own solidified placenta as a weapon, hurling pieces of it at you as if they were organic grenades. It truly is a thing of nightmares.
Number 9. You put Malenia at number 9?
And I have never known defeat.
Okay.
No other FromSoft boss has defined the cultural zeitgeist like how Malenia, Blade of Miquella, did. That was a clear shift in the gaming community where players steadily started to discover her hiding spot at the bottom of Elden Ring's Helix Tree. Arguably the 2022 Game of the Year winner's most challenging fight, and if not definitely one of its most memorable, the clash against Malenia takes place over 2 punishing stages that put all of your dueling skills to the test. If your name isn't Let Me Solo Her, that is. The first is a sword-centered face-off in which the legendary twin of Miquella, who brought Caelid to ruins for an unleashing of Scarlet Rot, aims to skewer you with her mesmerizingly deadly waterfowl dance maneuver. If you manage to weave yourself in and out of her flurrying swipes, you'll meet her second form, the beautifully destructive Goddess of Rot's persona that unleashes sparkling red flames that will eat your health bar. Malenia is a mighty challenge to take down, but also a boss fight filled with visual spectacle and rooted in a deep story attached to the shattering of Elden Ring's world.
Technical nude, but it's not that bad. There you go. Number 8. All right, let's see what
Guardian Ape is undoubtedly the most comedic foe on this list.
The Guardian
As you'd expect of a giant monkey, this mighty beast lashes out with a primal rage, its gangly limbs flailing outwards in order to sweep you off your feet.
This fight is the turning point on Sekiro when you realize that you're in for a wild ride. This was the moment for me. Like, I already knew that there was a lot of really cool shit. This is the moment that it gets cranked to like 14. Like it was already a 9. Like you're already on a 9. You're already kind of like 8 to 9, 10 in the scale of insane. Because even the boss run to this one is pretty fucking cool. You get to this and you just crank it even more. It's insane.
But between those strikes are moments of gleeful toilet humor as the Guardian Ape farts poison gas in your face and slings stinky mounds of poop across the battlefield. It's delightfully silly stuff. But the Guardian Ape is also the dirtiest trick FromSoft has ever pulled. And not because of all the feces. With the ape's head severed from its neck, it seems like the fight is over. The Shinobi execution graphic even appears, which always marks the end of a tough battle. And then the Guardian Ape stands up, its head grasped in one hand, the sword that decapitated it in the other. And then you must survive a frenzied fight with the ape's shrieking reanimated corpse. There's never been a table flip quite as effective as this one.
It's one of the most horrifying moments, yes. Number 7.
Artorias the Abyss Walker is a truly tragic figure within Dark Souls' lore. Possessed by the essence of darkness and forced to abandon his friends and compatriots, Artorias is a great piece of Dark Souls writing. Not only that, he's also an exhilarating boss fight. After dying again and again to Artorias' rapid attacks and tricky combos.
I love Artorias. Like, Artorias is an incredible fight. Above Solar Cinder, I don't know. I think Solar Cinder should be top 5. I think Solar Cinder, because once again, IGN, we are talking about the whole over here, and the way Solar Cinder brings everything together. I think that's more powerful than Artorias. So, yeah, no, but then again, IGN has not been able to keep up with its own standard in this video. So
by the time I defeated him, I felt like I should start recording my gameplay like Sunny Legend. More so than any other fight, beating Artorias felt like a rite of passage for anyone looking to embark on the path of mastering Dark Souls.
yeah.
The Nameless
6.
King is an example of a perfect Dark Souls boss. He's undeniably one of Dark Souls 3's most difficult foes.
If he's perfect, why is he at number 6?
But nevertheless puts up a fair and measured fight. His lightning-wreathed lunges and explosive slams are clearly telegraphed, and you don't need superhuman reflexes to counter him. What you do need is endurance, persistence, and flexibility,
Legally
as this
distinct
long fight of two halves presents a duo of unique challenges.
Oh yeah.
The first phase is a gold standard dragon duel, with the king riding atop his fire-belching, constantly mobile wyvern. With his mount defeated, you move on to the grounded second phase, in which you go toe-to-toe for the thrilling finale. Fought atop Archdragon Peak within the Eye of a Storm, Nameless King provides an unforgettable spectacle soundtracked by one of the series' best ever musical themes. This really is almost as good as it gets.
Oh, it kind of
The
is. Number
first
5.
time you encounter Ornstein and Smaug, you might think to yourself,
at least you put them in
doesn't seem very
top
fair.
5.
What's funny then is that after you finally manage to kill one of them, the other absorbs their fallen allies' power, restoring all of their health, and becomes a tougher version of what you've already been fighting.
And I think this is the only boss in Dark Souls 1 that has 2 phases, or one of the very few. Because Dark Souls boss fights did not have were single phase, and then again, like I loved Ornstein and Smaug. I wouldn't have put them. I would have put them top 10 and not top 5. But then again, don't forget, IGN is incapable of holding up to their own standards. So we're guaranteed to be up there. That dual fucked. Yeah, no, and I think as a whole, it makes for me it's top 10. Maybe like number 7, but yeah, not number 5. But you know, it's a slightly
no doubt prompting you to think again. Wait, that doesn't seem very fair. Ornstein and Smaug established the very template for this kind of double boss fight, and it's one that FromSoftware loves to include in virtually every one of its games released since Dark Souls. However, none have quite reached the level of notoriety as Ornstein and Smaug. It's an unforgettable fight on its own, but its influence on the genre as a whole is what truly makes this battle so special.
Oh yeah. Number 4.
You were at my side.
Ludwig the Cursed. Okay, this is Bloodborne, I don't know.
Ludwig is arguably Bloodborne's most complex boss. He constantly evolves throughout the fight, making use of new moves as you chip deeper into his health bar. Across both phases, he's able to command a total of 23 unique attacks, many of which are unleashed with such ferocity that even a minor error can leave you crushed beneath Ludwig's hooves. To defeat him, you need to fully embrace Bloodborne's trademark aggression and speed, particularly in the first phase, in which Ludwig leaps around like a frenzied buckaroo. Alongside being a serious challenge, Ludwig is a great encapsulation of Bloodborne's tragic lore. He's the Healing Church's first hunter, now mutated into a horse-like, multi-limbed eldritch horror, thanks to his dangerous obsessions.
I really need to play
Proudly
Bloodborne.
wielding Yharnam's version of FromSoft's reoccurring Moonlight Greatsword, Ludwig is one of the studio's greatest creations.
Number 3. Slave Knight Gale. Yes, okay.
Few
Top
fights
3,
feel as truly
understandable.
mythical as the showdown with Slave Knight Gale. The final boss of Dark Souls 3's Ringed City DLC, he more than lives up to the task of being the trilogy's concluding challenge. In the fight's opening act, he crawls around, beast-like, swinging his blade in heavy, imprecise arcs. But come phase 2, Gale takes on the strength of the Dark Soul itself. He stands upright, his cloak billowing like the wings of a fallen angel, armed with a terrifying array of abilities, from clouds of spectral skulls and lightning strikes to a machine gun-like crossbow. This fallen knight really is the ultimate test of skill, and thanks to Gale's story being so intricately entwined with the entire canvas that is the Dark Souls story, besting him feels like a momentous occasion. Soundtrack.
I remember feeling just that when I beat him the first time. It's such... I think it is the most difficult fight of Dark Souls 3. So, first time I fought him, he destroyed me for 3 days straight. Yeah, no, for me it was something like that as well. It was insane.
tracked by an orchestra and choir going the whole 9 yards, and fought on a battlefield that's essentially the ashes of existence itself. Slave-like Gale is Dark Souls' finest ever boss.
Number 2.
Should be left well alone.
With those words, Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower catapults her way into the top tier of FromSoftware's greatest bosses. In her horological throne room, you'll face one of Bloodborne's most technically accomplished duelists. Dodging her twin swords and pistol is tough enough already, but as the music ramps up and she begins to channel her blood powers, the fight reaches greater and greater levels of intensity. Dodge, parry, and attack until finally you slaughter your foe. The song ends and the curtains draw. Lady Maria, take a bow.
So what's number 1?
Pitiful grandchild.
As number 1? It's an insane fight. It's an insanely good fight. But number 1? I can see it. I can see it, yeah. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, Ishin, yeah. Yeah, like I'm recalling now to yeah, fair.
This was your last wish.
The intricate complexities of its focused combat system set Sekiro's boss battles apart from their peers in the wider FromSoft library. Sekiro really is the best swordplay simulator around. A whirlwind of exhilarating parries and viciously sharp strikes. And so it's perhaps only logical that its climactic clash stands as the very best boss fight FromSoftware has ever made.
The present, like everything about this fight, now that I'm thinking back to it, everything about this fight is pretty much perfect in terms of souls. The presentation, you're back in the first field where you did your first you did your first fight, or at least it looks like it. You know, you get that recall of everything, and you get that insane
Ishin the Sword Saint is everything that makes Sekiro so special. All wrapped up in a 4-phase battle that'll have your heart beating faster than it ever has before. Technically, two fights in one. Sekiro's final clash begins with one last duel.
Are there any other boss fights in Soulsborne Kiro history that have 4 phases? I don't think there are. Are they? Maybe there are, but this one is definitely the first, and the best.
Against Genichiro, who is ritually torn apart to resurrect his grandfather, the legendary warrior Ishin. And legendary really is the word. Ishin dominates a beautiful battlefield with a variety of techniques that pull on almost every single tactic you've mastered across your journey. You'll need to counter piercing thrusts from both sword and spear, block bullets from a surprise pistol, and even deflect searing bolts of lightning in the fight's final moments. Ishin is relentless in his offense, but there's a precision and elegance to this fight that turns the whole thing into a deadly dance. It's intimate and controlled and measured in a way few FromSoft battles are, and conquering Ishin provides an unmatched feeling of accomplishment. The Sword Saint may not be discussed as widely as iconic foes from Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and Bloodborne, but his downfall is, at least as far as we're concerned, FromSoftware's finest boss battle.
Okay. So there you have it. Let's see what you say now.
And those are the 25 bosses that we'll consider to be the greatest in FromSoftware's history. Did we include your favorite? Let us know your picks in the comments. For more from the grimdark world of FromSoft, check out our deep dive on how the studio redefined video game combat. And for everything else, you're already in the right place with IGN.
Okay, so I would not have put any of the Dark Souls 2 boss fights. I would have probably replaced them with some more of the Elden Ring ones or Dark Souls 3. Maybe some of the Dark Souls 1 fights as well. Like Priscilla from the Painted War of Ariamis. She's not the most difficult fight, but as a whole, the way it finishes everything, it's really good. So at the end of the day, I disagree with most of the list, except number 1. Number 1, absolutely merited. So they didn't put Yorm in there. His story is Sigurd is one of the best story quest lines. Yeah, but as a boss fight, Yorm the Giant is a gimmick fight. And it would be like saying the Bed of Chaos. It's not a good fight. It's a fun story. It's not a good fight. So, and it's one of my favorite games. So, all right. So there you have it. 25 best FromSoftware bosses. It's so sad. Yeah, very